Hello my dear friends, I hope you're all having an amazing day. So today we're going to be talking about a tidbit from The Mandalorian Season 2. In Chapter 12 The Siege, which in my opinion is the best Mandalorian episode, our heroes plan to infiltrate the Imperial Remnant's last remaining facility on Nevarro. Marshal Cara Dune tells Din Djarin and Greef Karga during the briefing that while the place is generally abandoned, there is a skeleton crew that remains guarding it. Now while at face value the term skeleton crew might seem inconsequential, as it's a common term to refer to a small crew, I'd be willing to bet that due to larger connections between Chapter 12 and what we expect to see in the series by the same name, that Jon Favreau chose it based on Cara Dune's words. In fact, the premise of that very episode in Season 2 has larger connotations than you might think. Skeleton Crew is expected to be a show that explores the seedy underbelly of the galaxy at this time through the eyes of Force-sensitive children, and based on what Giancarlo Esposito said, we're likely to see what the Imperial Remnant is up to, specifically concerning secret cloning projects and abandoned facilities, maybe even in the unknown regions. Those might also be manned by skeleton crews, so there could be a double or even triple meaning to the term. Skeleton crew first and foremost refers to the group of kids who are navigating their way back to their homes, but it might also be in reference to the small pockets of Imperial loyalists who after Palpatine's death worked behind the scenes like Moff Gideon to bring him back. As I've mentioned in the past guys, this show has the opportunity to explore some very dark things indeed, from accidental genetic mutations to strand casts and enemies within the scope of time before the rise of the First Order. There is such a big opportunity here. So while Cara Dune's use of the words might have been seen as a throwaway back in 2020, now that Jon Watts, Chris Ford and Jon Favreau are helming a series by the same name, I can't help but feel it's not a coincidence. And speaking of Cara Dune, this begs another big question. Are we going to see plot threads from the now shelved Rangers of the New Republic in Skeleton Crew? The reason I even proposed this as a possibility is because Kathleen Kennedy did say to Empire magazine just before the release of the Book of Boba Fett that other shows of the Mandoverse are going to absorb elements that were going to be included in Rangers. She refused to say with any certainty if Rangers is definitively cancelled, but her statement about incorporations in Mando do strongly imply that it isn't going ahead, and with the addition of the likes of Skeleton Crew, a few more seasons of Mando, the Ahsoka series, and maybe another season of Boba Fett, we'll get whatever plot points Rangers was going to include in those, notably the stories of Cobb Vanth, Carson Teva, Trapper Wolf, and possibly even Wedge Antilles, as well as others. So let me know what you think in the comments down below guys. Are you excited for Skeleton Crew, and did you make this connection between The Mandalorian Season 2 and the upcoming series? Now speaking of Rangers of the New Republic and the wider Mandoverse, let's go a bit deeper into some speculation, and a specific question I came across a couple of days ago. Given Jon Favreau's recent comments with Entertainment Weekly about future legacy inclusions, in other words future cameos, what other characters could serve the story of Mando or its spin-offs? Apart from the likes of Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka, Boba Fett and Bo-Katan, as well as the upcoming Rebels cameos, what other familiar characters could Jon have been referring to, especially given aspects of Rangers being included in future shows? Well, in a recent Skeleton Crew news update, I spoke about Jude Law's comments that said something similar, and we hypothesized on familiar bounty hunters, the likes of Lando, Luke again, and so on. But when it comes to the Mandalorian itself, one character I wonder if we're gonna see is Princess Leia. It's someone who right from the start of the show, I'd hope we would see at some point. In the months following the rise of Skywalker, when Mando was brand new, this was something I saw a few news outlets hypothesize about, and at the time, the big question that fans were wondering is how Mando would tie into the main saga, if at all. Well, 2.5 seasons in, if you count Boba Fett as that half, Favreau and Filoni have already connected the show in a huge way to the films, and that in my opinion leaves the door wide open for more familiar faces in the future, if of course they serve the story. There is of course some contention amongst fans that The Mandalorian is including too many familiar faces, but we'll come on to that in a moment. But since someone as big as Luke Skywalker can appear in The Mandalorian, it leads us to wonder if his twin sister Leia is going to appear at some point as well. So what are the chances she's going to appear in the story too? Mainly her connection to Luke enhances the likelihood that she will appear, especially if the Mandoverse is doing a rendition of Heir to the Empire. Now while Luke and Leia are very much doing their own thing in the years after Return of the Jedi, it's not as if they're completely estranged. For one thing, we know that at some stage Leia Leia sends her own son Ben Solo to be trained in the ways of the Jedi. It might be a bit early in The Mandalorian Season 3, but if the show's going to continue for the long haul, there is definitely that option. But even without Ben, there are many reasons for the two to keep in contact, and it just so happens that Luke will very likely still be in the story, at least in the Ahsoka show, despite Grogu returning to Din. So if Leia were to have a more involved role, it's possible that her position as a senator in the New Republic will play a large role in one of the upcoming shows. We already know there's going to be trouble between the New Republic and the remnants of the Empire, and so at some stage it might call for a scene where she and her office are forced to intervene, possibly even being a tipping off point for Rangers of the New Republic, whose events, as we know, are going to take place in the future seasons of Mando. The one major thing that could be holding Lucasfilm back from including Leia in The Mandalorian is the fact that Carrie Fisher is no longer with us, but given that they cast Vivian Lyra Blair as a child Leia, they might recast for a post-Return of the Jedi Leia in Mando. Or maybe just like they did in The Rise of Skywalker, they could use Billy Lord and a deepfake algorithm, or a combination of the two, just like they did to bring Luke back, although that might be a bit controversial in the fandom. But what do you guys think? If Leia does return, should they recast or not? And a broader question this brings up, are there too many familiar faces and cameos in the Mandalorian universe? This is definitely an opinion I've seen expressed many times and that many fans have following Season 2. Those who say yes believe that in Season 3, the show needs to stay away from those and focus much more on the plot. I've also seen some folks say that Grogu returned to Din way too soon, and it would have been nice to see Mando back on his own at least for a short time, but Season 3 by the sounds of things, and from what we see in the trailer, is absolutely more plot focused. I don't think they're doing the week-to-week side missions anymore, but the way I see it, there are so many characters out there who would serve the narrative of the show that I don't even consider them cameos or fan service. In a lot of cases like Bo-Katan and maybe even Sabine Wren, they're essential plot devices, they're not done just for fan service, and I think that's what Favreau has always envisioned for the show. From his perspective, it just helps a lot that Filoni years prior had set up a lot of unfinished threads in animation, so let's see how it plays out. But what do you guys think? Are there too many cameos in The Mandalorian, and if you could choose one character to bring into it, which would it be? But with that said, my dear friends, that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I just want to say yesterday was the first day in 2 years I didn't upload. It wasn't deliberate, I did have a video ready to go, but there was a glitch on YouTube's end that made it impossible. So I'm very sorry if you missed the video. A few of you did tweet at me. I really appreciate your love, guys. Thank you so much for watching all my videos. It means the world to me. This community is so special to me, and I appreciate each and every one of you who've helped make it what it is. I just want to make the best content I can for you guys, put out interesting videos that you want to see, get your input and feedback, and more than anything, have a wonderful fan discussion within this space. You guys provided me with a platform to talk about Star Wars and share my love and passion for this franchise, so thank you all so much. I love you all very dearly. But until the next one, my dear friends, may the Force be with you always. I'm Star Wars Meg. Have a good one.